Voters nationwide at the polls to weigh in on hundreds of House races. There was the Capitol earlier this evening. We have confirmed that the Republican Party has kept control of the U.S. Senate, and the Democrats, it looks like it's possible that they will have control of the House. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this special midterm election extended edition.
Yes, very exciting.
I'm Zach Wheeler.
And I'm Brooke Taylor. Thanks for joining us tonight on this special election edition of 18 News.
That's right. We are joined now by outgoing Chemung County Executive Tom Santoli, along with political analyst Dr. Stephen Coleman. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Great to be here.
Was there any surprises you saw this evening?
Well, certainly there were, a few surprises. I mean, first of all, I felt that there was a good chance on the national scene that the House was going to change. They needed 23 seats. It looks like they picked up somewhere around 35. I'm trying to catch up. But that is, if you look at history, this is what happens, and it's happened almost with every president, I think, other than three. They picked up a couple seats in the Senate. I'm not sure exactly what the number is, but it looks like they're going to make gains in the Senate, which was predicted. So that's good, and life will go on. But this was an election. Elections have consequences, and things change locally. Obviously, my deputy Mike Cruzen was not victorious. But there again, he decided to run on a third-party line. Could have had an impact on that. I mean, I never try to get into the voter's head of whether people are looking for change or whatever the momentum is. But I know this: every 4 years we run, and there are elections, and people make choices. And Chris Moss is the new county executive. We need to get behind him and support him, and he won the race, and you move forward. That's what you do. When the election's over, you pick up you get together and you do what's best for the community.
Yes. And with that tone, we've seen a lot of separation in some of these races. What do you have to say, and what does this mean going forward to hopefully bring people together, despite during these races you've seen people like Metrano and Reed really go at it with each other? How do we move on from that now?
Well, one day at a time. I think there's going to be still a lot of conflict in American politics. I think the 2020 presidential election starts tomorrow, and there'll continue to be the strife that we've been seeing. I think on the local level, I mentioned earlier, was this going to be a change or status quo local election? And I think Christopher Moss winning for county executive, that indicated that the voters want to change and did not want to keep cruising in the same direction, so to speak. I was very impressed, by the way, the 7th legislative district, Christina Sonshire defeating Cornelius Milliken. That was a wonderful victory for her, as she worked very hard. And the Milliken family in West Elmira is famous, and she defeated Cornelius Neal Milliken, the dentist, and she deserves a lot of credit for that. And I think Christina Sonshire is going places. I think someday she could very well be in Congress.
Speaking of Congress, it was pretty close. This was an interesting congressional time. I think it was pretty close compared to the ones we've seen in the past. Do you think that had to do with just the climate of the politics?
Yeah, I mean, let's just be blunt about it. What is the thing the public complains most about politics as they see it? That it's not people working together, it's not people coming together, and that's in particular. We have our discussions at the local level, but believe me, it pales in comparison to what goes on at the federal level, and it starts from the president on down. Both parties, the far left, the far right, they just can't seem to come to the middle and make things work. And it's just been very confrontational, and it's going to take. I'm not sure what it's going to take. There's a word that I use all the time that it's called respect, and when you don't show respect for each other, you just can't get anything done. Yeah. I mean, you can disagree. I love disagreement. I think a good discussion is worthwhile. We all shouldn't be running in the same direction, but at the end of the day, you got to get the job done.
Yeah. So the founding fathers, established a government where there would be checks and balances and conflict, And sometimes I think it's good that things don't get done, because if things do not get done, it means the government, to a certain degree, is out of our lives. So I think sometimes stalemate, conflict is a good thing for the country, and I think the founding fathers established that kind of a government for us.
Yeah. Starting out of state government, we just saw Governor Cuomo clearly won a third term. And there's a lot. I was just skimming through Facebook before we came on, and there was a lot of disappointed people from the upstate and a lot of happy people, obviously, from the downstate. We're not quite sure of the power in the state House or the state Assembly and the state Senate just right now. But what do we have to look, as we people who live upstate? How can we?
And I said this to you earlier. I mean, it comes as no surprise to me that Andrew Cuomo won the third term. This is a very democratic state. It is. It's extremely democratic, and especially it's downstate. That's where the vast majority of the population lives, and it just came as no surprise to me. It would take some catastrophic event, as far as I'm concerned, to make that switch. Upstate's a completely different picture. And again, I try to separate, because when I say a Republican Senate, I mean, somebody says, well, why does it have to be a Republican? It has to be a Republican Senate because if it's all Democratic, and this is what could happen, if it's all Democratic Senate and Democratic Assembly, New York City will control everything that there is. And that happened before, and if there was a period of time, it wasn't a long period of time, but upstate got nothing because it got lost in the shuffle. The checks and balances is you need a Republican Senate that fights for upstate New York, because quite frankly, in New York City, they don't see upstate as even existing. You know, it's a different world to them.
Yeah, upstate New York, in terms of New York politics, upstate New York is an orphan. And we talked earlier about the razor-thin edge in the Senate for the Republicans. And the Republicans need to maintain control of the Senate. And you're right, Tom, if Republicans do not maintain control, it's going to be worse than ever for upstate and for Republicans.
And we just mentioned before, Zach mentioned Facebook and some of our social media platforms. The eye has been a lot of on millennials and them voting. I'm wondering what you two see as sort of trends with millennials in these midterm elections compared to maybe other elections.
Well, I can tell you this, in the earlier elections, even though a great number of millennials signed up to vote, they really got out there and they did not go to the day of the election. They did not go. Now, the numbers from what I'm hearing are better this year. More millennials voted than before. But, you know, I just think that you know, you have to focus in, if we're going to turn things around, I mean, because to me it's millennials, it's seniors, it's everybody in the middle. I mean, people have to come together to get something done. And again, this country is suffering from the fact that it is just so polarized. And there used to be a time, and I can remember Amo Houghton, who was a beloved congressman here, would always talk about, you can disagree, but we still went out at night and had dinner, and we could talk to each other. I think it's just gotten down nasty.
Yeah, you can't do that there,
They can't even socialize with each other. It's become that bad.
In terms of millennials, as millennials age, they'll be voting more. Generally, the younger demographic does not vote much, and then as people get older, get established, have families, etc., they tend to vote more. And then we become a senior citizen like me. You vote a lot. So anyway, that's the way it works.
You had mentioned something that the presidential election starts tomorrow, which is pretty much true in the case of American politics. It seems it takes many years for us to go through a presidential election. What are we going to see in the coming weeks now?
Well, I think we're going to have more and more talk now about who's going to run for president. Obviously, Donald Trump has been campaigning for president since he first stepped into office. So I think we know that he's running. But the question is, what about the Democrats? Who is going to stand up and run on the Democratic side? Which are the characters that may be running, and so on?
I think what you're going to do is you're going to, because they have won the House, and rightfully so, they did it, you could get stuck in investigations, more investigations, just more finger pointing, more animosity, and you know, you're probably going to, I think for the next 2 years, they're going to try to discredit the president, and he will probably do the same to them, and I'm not sure if you get anything done.
With Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House, there'll be investigations galore. There very well may be impeachment proceedings against President Trump. And what about Brett Kavanaugh? They're going to be investigating Brett Kavanaugh and perhaps moving to impeach Kavanaugh.
Yeah, I know we talked about this a few hours ago about Nancy Pelosi. Would it be a wise decision for this new Congress, especially this new majority, to actually re-elect her as Speaker of the House? I mean... Yeah.
I'm probably the wrong person to ask, but
well, that's okay. No, I mean, it's interesting. I feel like people in the Democratic Party in itself, from what we hear from the Democratic Party members, is that they say, yeah, she's not the right person to lead this party.
I think both sides need to look at leadership and say, you know, is it time to get people that maybe that can sit down and face to face again? And I love debate, and I think this whole democracy is based on freedom of speech and being able. But I just think it's gotten too far off course. It just is. It's. I think you need new leadership. Brings you new ideas. I think, you know, Nancy Pelosi's been around a long time, and I can go down the list of all the people that have been there a long time, and I think it's just very polarizing.
Well, I think that Nancy Pelosi probably will be the Speaker of the House. She's very good at raising money, and when it comes to Congress, it's God the Father, God the Son, and God the Almighty Dollar. Believe me.
Let's take a quick look at some of the numbers that we have in here. Some of the big races that we followed tonight. I believe we have them. This is obviously Governor of Pennsylvania. No surprise here, right? Tom Wolf winning with 58% of the vote. Do you think Scott Wagner? I think he came out with that crazy video. I believe it was a video. I'm not exactly sure, but do you think something like that? This whole nasty way of politics maybe affected that race at all?
Sure didn't help. I mean, as far as I was concerned, and that's what it was. It was that tape that he came out with. I don't think it helped the cause. And Wolf obviously
very
has a following.
Yeah, he does.
Scott Wagner was a junior varsity candidate, and he was desperate and came out with that.
Okay.
Not surprising, he lost.
Yeah, let's move on now. This was obviously the big race here. When you saw these numbers come in, were either of you surprised?
Yeah, I was. I mean, just to be blunt about it, you know, and I say what I said before. Chris Moss has run for sheriff 4 times, countywide. He's a popular sheriff. Sheriffs are popular in upstate New York. He had, you know, good name recognition. Mike ran on a third party. Mike worked for me for 18 years, did a great job. I have nothing but respect for Mike, but, you know, that third party decision was one that he made. And, you know, whether that was right or wrong or whatever, Jerome seems like a really nice guy. I don't know him well, but did you know, got a fair number of votes. But I'll say what I said when I started. Chris Moss is the new county executive, and for the best interest of the community, we need to get together, get behind them, and move forward.
And certainly this camp, the 3 of them, we've definitely seen them go head to head. What does this now mean, and what does this say to the voters, the direction that they want to go in?
Well, I mean, Chris is going to come in, and you know, I was fortunate. I was the county executive for 18 years. But Chris will now come in, and he'll have an agenda, which is his business, and he'll have his team, and they will decide how do we move forward. It may be much different from what we did. That really is up to him. And I think the public, listen, the public lets you know. In this job, when you're out, when I go to Wegmans, when I go any place, it takes me hours to get out of places because people feel very free to come up to you and talk to you. They'll let you know what they're thinking.
Oh yeah, we know that. We have that feeling too.
Yes, for better or for worse. And for someone who's held that position before, what do you think the transition's going to be like from sheriff to county exec?
Well, it'll be different. That's, I mean, for law enforcement, and then now running a $200 million budget and with 1,000 employees. But you know what? There's people that are, and I'm sure Chris has his own ideas already. The best I can offer is, you know, I'm around, I'm available, I'll help in any way I can. He has to make the decision as county executive where he's going, and people should get behind him and support him. I mean, this is our community, and what we don't want to have is 4 years of, you want 4 years of supporting the person that's there.
I think that's a key right there. You wanted to comment on that, Dr. Coleman?
Yeah, I think that, first of all, Jerome Emanuel should be congratulated. 29% of the vote, his first time running for office. And I think in general, the county executive race was civil. People acted like gentlemen. Jerome Emanuel at one point said to me, he wasn't going to really go after his opponents because he didn't feel that was necessary. So I think in that sense, there was a positive spirit, unlike the race for Congress between Reed and Matrano.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we have that on our next, is that our next graphic?
Yes,
we
the
can bring that?
23rd Congressional District.
It looks like we're calling it right now. It's official. Tom Reed, 55% of the vote. He actually just made his, I think Tracy Matrano made a concession speech, and Congressman Reed making a victory speech in Corning tonight.
Yes.
What was your reaction to this race, just out of curiosity? Because I mean, it was pretty interesting. She ran a tough campaign.
I wasn't surprised that Tom won. She did run a hard race, and I mean, if I had a nickel for every commercial I saw, I mean, some nights there were in one set there were 4 of his and 4 of hers, and it was. I mean, it was.
They're over now.
It was hot, but you know what? I like Tom Reed. I do not know Tracy. I've liked Tom Reed, but again, he won, and he is at least talking about in Washington, and he formed somewhat of a coalition with the Democrats to try to bring people together to treat each other civilly. Unfortunately, elections get heated today, and they get hot, and they get overstated, and lots of money was poured into this race. And
he put together that group in Washington for nonpartisanship. 24 Republicans, 24 Democrats. Although Tracy Matrano said, well, they haven't done anything. So she was skeptical and cynical about that.
Gentlemen, we want to thank you both for joining us tonight on this extended
Thanks for
edition.
having us.
We really appreciate it. And thank you for your service. 18 years as county executive here in Chemung. We appreciate all of it, and we thank you too for coming. We're going to go live on our station in just a matter of moments.
Yes,
So, see
and
you
the
soon.
latest results can be found on our website, my20years.com.